This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning, and we take a look at the political pieces we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 13th of May, 2020, and I am DM.
I'm Tom.
And I am JM. In case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, who's next on the chopping block? In the Standard, what's next for RUTO? And in the Star, Raila plays key role as UHURU gets forceful.
Yeah.
So let's begin with the Standard.
Yes.
The Standard has done an analytical piece on RUTO's options now that he's at a crossroads.
Yeah.
There's been lots of impunity, insubordination and disloyalty towards the party leader.
Yeah.
Those were the words of David Murathe, the vice chair of the Jubilee Party, number one. Number two, after the removal of his close political allies in the Senate, the changes in the Jubilee Party National Management Committee, about 5 political parties, we are told, are wooing the DP should his stay in Jubilee become untenable.
Yes.
And the Standard tells us that he's got a few options here. He can join the Service Party, TSB, that's the party founded by former Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kiunjuli.
Yeah.
Then there is Transformation National Alliance Party, TNAP,
Yes.
of Moses Kuria. These are the heavyweights. Okay, and then we have the Party of Reform and Development, PDR.
Yeah.
Ironically, we're also told this was the former Party of Action,
Yes.
launched in February 2012 by Jubilee Secretary General Raphael Tuju.
Yeah.
Is there no longer a party called URP? Or it was swallowed whole?
URP was swallowed completely. It was swallowed into
It
Jubilee,
dissolved.
if you recall.
It was dissolved.
Additionally, we are also being told that while his allies have indicated the resolve to fight from within, the truth of the matter is that they have narrowed choices. In the past, when RUTO was edged out, he migrated from parties. He left his mother party, KANU, where he served as Secretary General, to join ODM. He left ODM to join a UDM in 2012 and left UDM to join URP.
Yeah.
And so the question begs,
Yeah.
will he quit and form his own party?
Yeah.
I think he's in a catch-22,
Yeah.
personally. If he stays in Jubilee,
Yeah.
it clearly won't be on his terms.
Absolutely.
If he leaves the party, he cannot migrate with a Mount Kenya bloc.
Yeah.
Because they'll be left with Jubilee.
Yeah.
And obviously, if he does not move with the Mount Kenya support base,
Yeah.
he is unlikely to become president in 2022.
Yeah.
That is the Standard, loaded.
You know what,
The
JM?
Standard is being so, sorry to him,
Yeah.
they're being so disdainful, saying that if Ruto wants to leave the party, he can go and join some parties nobody has heard of, like the Padlock Party of Kenya, and I don't know what.
Yeah.
They're just taking shots at him.
You know, my friend, Jim, you mentioned the URP dissolving itself.
Yeah.
And, Prof likes to say that Uhuru Kenyatta is a least studied politician. That
That's
action of parties dissolving themselves into Jubilee was
Calculated.
was very calculated. The best student of Daniel Arap Moi was Uhuru Kenyatta. He's
Yes.
so far. Because the scheme right here is to literally take out every stronghold of William Ruto, starting with his party. Then you go to his MPs, and then you go to his wealth, and then you go to his land. Literally, he's just being stripped apart, little by little.
Little by little. So that is the Standard. We have a 3-part criteria that we use to assess the headlines. Are they topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, and finally thoughtful or just plain lazy? I think this is a well-crafted headline.
It's fantastic.
Good piece. I think we put it in a parking bay.
It's fantastic.
Should we move on to the Nation?
Absolutely. And who's next on the chopping block? And this Daily Nation is speculating that the guys next on Uhuru's chopping block are committee members, committee heads. First and foremost on that head is Budget and Appropriations Committee head Kimani Ichung'wah,
Yeah.
Majority Whip Benjamin Osheli, and his deputy Cecily Mbarire. And these are largely seen as Ruto's allies. But you see, if at all there's going to be a chop and a purge in Parliament, it's not just to fix Ruto's allies. The actual fact is to chop off William Ruto, to impeach William Ruto. And that is because, you see, if it's going to happen that Uhuru Kenyatta gets into a coalition with Raila Odinga, Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka, and this man called Wetangula, then it actually means, should they have the numbers,
Yeah.
the impeachment of William Ruto is going to be very easy. Very, very easy. And if that happens, then they want to bait him, as we said earlier, into stoking some violence. And once he stokes some violence, there is going to be some air marshals at The Hague that will be receiving him.
What an ominous prediction.
All right, and what do you have in the Star?
The Star, well, all dailies are covering the same story, but the Star's angle is a bit inciting. They're saying that Raila Odinga has played a key role behind the scenes of the decisions that Uhuru Kenyatta is making in terms of the changes in the political leadership of the Senate and also the coming changes in Parliament as well. They're also saying that some reliable sources have said that that the president has requested Raila, Kalonzo and Mudavadi to forward the names that they want to be included in the new cabinet. So they're saying there's going to be a cabinet reshuffle. And in addition to a cabinet reshuffle, there's also going to be some leadership changes in various key parastatals. And that is the long and short of it. What I'm seeing from this story is doing two things, as I've mentioned first. It's inciting us, I suppose, against Raila or people who would be RUTO supporters. This paper is saying it's actually Raila that is influencing these decisions that the president is making. And I think there's a danger in this story because it makes it look like there's a ganging up. And we've talked about political persecution before. And when people see that somebody is being ganged up against, what does he become? He becomes the underdog. So this becomes counterproductive to if there is an intention to politically obliterate RUTO, then this is counterproductive to that intention. The other thing I'm seeing the Star is trying to do is to suggest that there is a scramble for Kenya. There's a scramble for Kenya, so the people are dividing the spoils amongst themselves. The spoils being right now the leadership in the two houses, the political leadership in the Senate, in the National Assembly, and then next cabinet reshuffle, and then next key positions in parastatals. And they're clearly saying that the people have been asked to give names. So this is a story that is very, in my view, quite skewed and with those two intentions of inciting.
but you know, the purging of the poison in the system of the party and in government must continue. It will continue.
It will continue.
And so we should expect more heads to roll.
It's coming. The tsunami, that Senate
and in fact, it's long overdue.
That Senate thing.
Is the Speaker of the National Assembly safe?
Who knows?
No, he is safe. He's safe.
Who knows? You never know.
Anyway, so who do we give the winning headline to?
I'll give it the Standard.
The Standard has crafted a good headline.
So what's next for RUTO? That's our winning headline. And on to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. We have a three-part criteria as well that we use to assess these cartoons. Are they humorous or dry, satirical or pessimistic, and finally, effective or just plain lazy?
You have the Standard. Can we start with the Standard?
Yes.
Standard, you have the caricature of William Ruto, and he's naked. And he has a turban on him, and he's trying to hide his nakedness. And you have Uhuru Kenyatta in the back, and he's smoking his cigar there, and he's holding Ruto's clothes. And you see he has a crown, and his shoes down there. And Raila Odinga is there offering sanitizer to William Ruto. Clever this. And the caption there,
very clever there.
You know that mouse down there saying, well, at least they've left you with a turban.
So he's offering him sanitizer because when he frees his hands to sanitize them, then he's even further exposed.
Very savage.
Savage.
Good, effective cartoon though.
Self-explanatory.
Self-explanatory.
Oh, yes.
In the Daily Nation, we have Gideon Moi, Raila, Murkomen, Ruto, and Kuria. In an ex-Jubilee car, there's a Defender, a Land Rover Defender there that is battered, and it looks like it's a write-off at this point, or it's almost a write-off. And Uhuru is on the outside with Mudavadi and Musyoka, and they seem to be in conversation that is in gleeful conversation, and you can see Gideon Moi's his father's rungu sticking out of the car. You know, maybe symbolizing leadership is in the horizon.
Do they have flies on the other side of this is Ruto, Kuria, and Murkomen? Are those flies
surrounding them.
Hovering around them.
Hovering.
So the car is smelling. So
So they want to jump ship. And there's a foot there of an identified person. We know she's female because she has high heels on.
I particularly like the choice of the vehicle. This is the classic Land Rover Defender, I think 110 from the 1940s or 50s. Good choice there.
Good choice.
Government vehicle.
Yes. And what do we have in the Star?
The Star, you have caricature of Uhuru Kenyatta awarding a lollipop to Gideon Moi, and he has taken that lollipop from Murkomen and to Kano. He's giving it to Kano. He's taking it from Murkomen and giving it to Kano.
And there's a pregnant Raila in the background.
It's Ruto.
Ruto, sorry.
It is Ruto who is pregnant, and next is also the new bride, and that is Gideon Moi. And the caption there is, "The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh."
Yes.
So is the Lord of lollipops.
Shall we toss who should we award the winning cartoon to then?
Gado,
hands down.
Gado.
So shall we? Let's actually toss.
Yeah,
I think if you have the papers, just toss them right now.
Absolutely.
Good one.
Yes.
So we have a winning headline and a winning cartoon from the Standard. And so, what is our final thought?
And now our final thought. It is inspired by a book entitled Dogfight, The Rivalry Between Apple and Google by Fred Vogelstein.
Indeed it is. How Apple and Google went to war and started a revolution. So this week we've been talking about rivalries, and we've seen how over the years they have spurred innovation. We've seen that complacency is the enemy of progress, and so competition is good for creation.
Right.
So today we're talking about Apple and Google, specifically about phones and the operating system of the phone. So on one side we have Apple, the iPhone in specific, and their iOS phone operating system. And then on the other side, we have Google, which is a search engine giant, as we all know, but they're also software visionaries and the owners of Android, an open source operating system that can be used on any phone except the iPhone. So Apple and Google were once very good friends, but they became enemies around in the year 2004. So Steve Jobs, the Apple visionary, had decided that Apple is not going to venture into phones, and they're going to focus on the iPod, the music device. But by 2004, other phone companies had figured out how to integrate a music device into a phone, so people do not have to have two different devices for different functionalities because they were integrated. So he had to join into that market, which he also saw was really growing. So in 2004, he started thinking about developing an Apple phone. And in development, as usual, as was the fashion of Steve Jobs, he wanted to create a phone that was revolutionary with functionalities that nobody had seen before. And he achieved this in two ways. The first way was the multi-touch screen. Now at this time, the touch screen could only be manipulated with one finger. And he wanted to integrate a function where this phone screen could be manipulated by two fingers. So this was really tough because at that time the phone chips or the processors could only interpret one touch at a time. But Apple worked on it, and eventually they found a way to integrate this super functionality. The second thing, the second breakthrough that Steve Jobs got was the touch screen itself. Now, at that time, engineers had two options. Either you have plexiglass, which did not break when you dropped the phone, but it scratched so much and so easily. And the other one was just ordinary glass, which did not scratch, but of course broke easily. So he wanted to create a phone that did not scratch and also did not break easily. So he worked on this research until eventually he had an epiphany. When he was working with in conjunction with a glass company, and discovered this glass called Gorilla Glass. And this glass was actually manufactured to for the windscreens of fighter jets. So they were almost unbreakable. They're called the strongest glass in the world. So now he had the multi-function screen, the multi-touch screen rather, and the
The fighter jet.
and the fighter jet Gorilla Glass. Two fantastic innovations into one phone.
Brilliant.
But the competition was not sleeping.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It wasn't sleeping. Actually, DM, the enmity between Google and Apple concretized in 2007.
Yeah.
In the eyes of the public, they did think that Google and Apple had been enemies, actually, as you said, since 2004.
Yeah.
But it really, the crisis boils over in 2007. And this is what happens. So Steve Jobs went to great lengths to keep the development of the iPhone top secret. He didn't want any information about the phone leaked. So as the development of the phone proceeded, he began to cordon off areas in the office, limiting employee access. He was very paranoid about the entire process. Over one weekend, for example, certain common areas became off limits to any employees who were not on the iPhone team. And team members who were working on the iPhone team had to sign NDAs and contracts for those NDAs to say that I signed an NDA. Whoa! Just to make sure that the message was clear. Absolutely. And so that was step one. But while partnering with Apple on the iPhone, Google started its own secret smartphone project. So in the year 2007, Apple and Google actually partnered in the development of the iPhone. Jobs wanted the new phone to include Google software such as YouTube as well as Google Maps. Yet at the same time, he later found out that Google was developing its own smartphone project. So they were just, basically spying on what Apple was doing and then pirating its methods. So in July 2005, it turns out that Google bought Android Inc. for $50 million and put its co-founder, Andrew Rubin, in charge of the project. Rubin was tasked with performing the Android smartphone, with perfecting rather the Android smartphone operating system in secret and partnering with a company called HTC to develop a new kind of smartphone. And Jobs was very betrayed when he found out that Google basically unveiled a new phone, the Android project, and took a very competitive stance against it. So towards the end of 2007, he realized the full extent of Google's betrayal. In November that year, Andrew Rubin, the co-founder of Android Inc., held a press conference to announce the development of the Android operating system and a newly founded Open Handset Alliance. And this was a consortium of 34 phone producers, software developers and carriers, including T-Mobile, eBay, Intel, and Sony. So they all came together to produce some hardware for this software called Android. And once that platform was launched, it would be in direct competition with Apple's iOS. And eventually that's what happened. And when Jobs realized this, he then called them out for meetings, told them this is unacceptable. They gave him reassurances and told him, look, we're just running a few prototypes. We're not going to launch this to the market. But eventually they ended up launching these products on the market. We now have Android phones. We have hardware that is as a result of the efforts of Android Inc. and Google. So a legal battle ensued, and you can read more about how the legal battle panned out between these two companies in the book.
So Jamie, you're telling us even in the phone making world, there are grand coalition governments.
There are, absolutely.
Who gang up?
Who gang up?
My take from this guy was how internal rivalries and internal animosity can actually create successes out of phone companies. So a story is told about two fellows, software engineers. One is a man called Scott Forstall, and the other one is called Tony Fadell.
And these guys were working on the Apple iPhone.
They were actually working on iPhone. They were Steve Jobs' employees. Now, Scott Forstall was a brilliant software engineer, but he was employed by Apple in 1992. Yet he somehow was not in the inner circle of Steve Jobs. Then this guy called Fadell. Fadell was the head of the iPhone project. In fact, he's the one that made the iPod very successful. And by 2006, the iPod was actually generating over 40% of Apple's revenue. Now, they decided to have a phone in 2006, an iPhone. And the iPhone was actually meant to be built on the iPod platform and just add a phone function on top of it. Then this Forstall guy, because he was out of the circle, he comes up with a brilliant idea and he tells Steve Jobs, what we can do is we can take the entire operating system of the Mac computer, put it down to a tenth of its size, and then put it on a phone. And Jobs says, oh, great idea. Go ahead and do it. This guy was actually successful, and he did it. And the iPhone was born. Now, Fadel did not like this, and in fact, the two fought over you know, the ideas. But this guy became so successful, this Forstall guy became so successful that iPhone right now has built over 2.2 billion phones. And because of his idea, the iPhone sales now compose about over 50% of Apple's revenue. Now, this rivalry did not just happen because of the two. It was Steve Jobs' brainchild to actually have two competing teams start fighting each other. In fact, during the building of the iPhone, Forstall was actually allowed to go into Fadel's team, take his software engineers, bring them over to have the iPhone built. So it tells you how it's not toxic, but good competitive energy is actually good to build the successes of companies.
And breeds a lot of innovation.
Absolutely, that's what it does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a wonderful book we've got here.
Yeah.
So on a day where we had a winning headline and a winning cartoon from the Standard, I will ask that you don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are also on your TV screens. Find us on Pang Free to Air, Go TV, and Star Times.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
Yes.